Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. Question for you. What is one of the latest breakthroughs about autoimmunity that nobody's talking about?
Well, today we're going back to our roots. We're going to talk about autoimmune disease, whether you think you have one, or you know you have one, or you don't even have a diagnosis of one. What is an underlying cause of biohack that your doctors don't know about and you don't know about? Today, we're going to break the lid wide open on that. We're going to dive right in autoimmune breakthroughs they don't know about and you don't know about. Here we go.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for Autoimmune and Transform Table Talk Live. I stuck the autoimmune in there because we really are focusing on autoimmune today. This is something that I'm so glad so many people have asked for this, kind of getting to the basics, but then peeling back some layers and really getting to the root of what is causing all of this that nobody's talking about, Dr. Maggie.
Yeah, and I love being able to jump back into autoimmunity. A lot of my roots of my own history with my medical symptoms and conditions started out there even without me knowing it. So what I want to do is for all of you guys that are watching right now, if you have an autoimmune diagnosis, type it in chat, tell me what it is. If you don't have a diagnosis, but you have symptoms that you suspect are autoimmune related, tell me what that is also. Because what I want to do is I want to raise the level of awareness about what autoimmunity really is and just how common it is and how much more and more commonplace it is becoming. So as you guys are typing in, someone wrote Hashimoto's, which some people just call low thyroid. And how many of you guys have Hashimoto's out there, right? Yeah. So let me, while you guys are jumping into chat, talking about what autoimmune conditions or symptoms you have or think you have, I'm going to talk about what is autoimmune disease. Let's go with a basic explanation, right? What your immune system is supposed to do is, and your immune system lives throughout your body, all throughout your body in different ways, okay? And your immune system has really two big jobs. One job is to identify something that's a foreign invader, like a germ, and says, you're a germ, you don't belong here, I'm going to kill you. That's one thing it does, right? Another branch of it, another branch that it does is the immune system can also survey your own cells and says, oh, you're a cancer cell. You don't belong here. I'm going to kill you. So like your immune system has that job is to look at something outside your body and something that's inside your body, identify it as something that's unwanted as a germ, and actively tries to kill and get rid of it. The problem for people with autoimmune disease is that your immune system, instead of working for you in this way, okay, against those unwanted cancer or infectious organisms, looks at the normal cells in your body and says, you're a germ and I'm going to hurt you. Think about that. So someone just mentioned Hashimoto's. So Wendy just mentions Hashimoto's and vitiligo. Great example. Hashimoto's is where her body's immune system looks at her thyroid and says, you're a germ and I'm going to kill you. Vitiligo is where your immune system looks at the cells that make melanin on your skin and says, I don't like you, I'm going to hurt you. So then those cells don't make melanin, you will get pale patches on your skin. And that is the definition of vitiligo. So, and then B is jumping in saying thyroid nodule, cysts, right? Can thyroid nodules and cysts be targets of autoimmune attack? And that's why they get nodular and cystic? Yes.
I want to say B. Smith is so smart for recognizing that, though, right? Because I don't think a lot of people, including doctors, do realize that that is an autoimmune attack.
Right. And then she even wrote arthritis. Are there many forms of arthritis, meaning pain in your joints, that are related to actual autoimmune attack against the joints? The answer is yes, because we have things like rheumatoid arthritis. We have polyarthralgias. We have spondylosing
ankylosing spondylitis.
Thank you. Ankylosing. Try saying that 10 times fast.
It's
and then we have pseudonyms like Kimberly is coming in saying CFS, which is what? What is CFS? People come up with these acronyms. Some of them, there's so many acronyms. People get confused because there's so many, right? Chronic fatigue syndrome. And then we got Nia jumping in saying ulcerative colitis, right? So many of you guys have known diagnoses of autoimmunity. And in the ulcerative colitis, certain parts of her large intestine is being seen by her immune system as a germ, and it's actively attacking it. That's why there is damage in her large intestine, which is her colon, with bleeding and mucus, those kinds of things. That's what ulcerative colitis is. So
if
now
you have that, though, do doctors treat you as an autoimmune patient? Because I know several people who have that and don't recognize the fact that they have autoimmune issues.
This is correct. Meaning like we have Rose in our program, for example, who found in her own medical record in one of her colonoscopies like a decade ago that wrote down the word colitis, which is inflammation in her colon. And the most common cause of colitis, and then especially with later on, she got symptoms of bleeding and other issues, is actually autoimmune related. So it's interesting that she was never told she even had colitis. And later on, as more and more actual diagnosis and other symptoms came up, she was able to look back at medical records from 6, 7 years ago and realize I had colitis 6 years ago. No one even told me that that could have been related with autoimmunity, which it is. Right?
And Jill actually says same thing with diabetes.
Correct. Diabetes is an autoimmune attack against certain parts of your blood sugar hormone management system. So it can be against insulin itself. It can be against the pancreas. There's multiple targets it can be, but the result of that impact is that the blood sugar gets really poorly controlled. But it is against some of the hormones and organs that actually regulate blood sugar. So diabetes is an autoimmune disease. Boom.
Take that to the bank. Yeah. A lot of people. So we're seeing people chime in with like some of the most common ones like RA, Hashimoto's, and then some of the uncommon ones as well. And Dr. Maggie, you're mentioning that there are classic, what everybody considers to be autoimmune, but then there's a whole list of others that I don't think that people generally relate as autoimmune conditions.
Which is why I think Kim was the one who mentioned CFS, which is chronic fatigue syndrome. How many people with chronic fatigue syndrome know or are highly suspicious that they have an underlying autoimmune disorder? It's almost like looking at chronic fatigue syndrome. And those of you watching on YouTube, thank you. The chronic fatigue syndrome is a description of the symptoms. It actually doesn't really tell you the cause. So to me, that's not even like a diagnosis where you're like, oh, everybody with chronic fatigue syndrome has the same thing. No, there's many different conditions that causes people to be chronically fatigued. Most of those are actually related to autoimmune disease. Okay. So that's the other thing is, and then I'm going to list, like, think about some of these symptoms. How many people have neuropathy here? Yeah. Right. Meaning pain in the nerves, tingling, right? How many people have a lot of palpitations, insomnia, anxiety, brain fog, right? How many people have, even have had long haul where they had that initial big C infection and then they developed long haul, and the long haul feels almost like autoimmune like with things like neuropathy, problems with smell, hear, taste, right? Chronic pain, chronic fatigue, right? So how many of you have thought with long haul that could this have triggered an autoimmune condition where my immune system now is working against me, right? Boom, right? Absolutely. And then fibromyalgia. Fibromyalgia is a real diagnosis. And it's a descriptive term for targets that are under autoimmune attack that is muscular. So literally when you press certain points around the muscles, they hurt. But why do they hurt it's the most important question you need to ask. The reason why is because there's literally an autoimmune attack against some component in the musculature. And that's why in fibromyalgia, there's actually specific tender points that you press that helps make the diagnosis. The term fibromyalgia really describes the symptoms, but it doesn't address the underlying issue, which is that most cases of fibromyalgia is an undiagnosed autoimmune condition attacking some level of muscle, tendons, or ligaments, FYI.
How about what Wendy's saying? Long haul. How does that tie into the picture?
Huge, right? So there's certain types of infections that can trigger an autoimmune attack. So we call it molecular mimicry. So we know certain types of bacteria like mycoplasma. We know certain types of like Lyme. We know that certain people with big C, once they have that infection, they'll start getting diagnosed with lots of symptoms that are weird, or eventually they'll end up adding some diagnosis of autoimmunity. So we know for a fact that certain infections can actually incorporate into the DNA of your body, and it makes your immune system thinks that your own cells are foreign, causing that attack. So literally it does trigger an immune system attack against self, which is what autoimmune disease is.
Another condition that I don't know that we mentioned yet that I don't think is often always associated in the conventional medical world as being autoimmune, Lori mentions POTS.
Exactly. Postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. I'm going to just spend a minute on that because so many people have POTS and POTS like dysautonomia, and they don't even know what it is. Their doctors don't know what it is. It's one of those quote unquote mystery diagnoses or symptoms that to me is really clear what it is. It's autoimmune related. Postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome is where when there's positional changes, your heart rate can change to fast or slower, and your blood pressure can also change and shift. So what that means is you sit up or you stand up to walk and you feel like fainting. As you're walking, even turning your head a certain way, you can get vertigo, which is dizziness. Some people literally will faint and they feel like out of balance, requiring a cane to walk. How many people have symptoms like that and have a diagnosis of POTS? Type in chat. How many people have symptoms like that and can't get diagnosis POTS because no one will take you seriously? That's the other 90% of people with these symptoms. So type that in chat. That'd be really great for you guys to just understand that POTS, this particular syndrome, is in a family of disorders we call dysautonomia.
Yeah.
And dysautonomia is a dysregulation of the nervous system. There's two nervous systems in your body. One is called the parasympathetic, the calming. One is the excitatory, which is sympathetic nervous system. These nervous systems balance throughout the day to help you balance what we call homeostasis activities, things that keep things going, and activities of fight or flight when you need to hit and run, right? So it's a balance of those two, parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. But can they themselves, being nerves, be targets of autoimmune attack? You think about it. Type it in chat. It's a yes or a no. Everybody gets to vote. Do you think that POTS and dysautonomia is likely an autoimmune attack against those sets of nerves? Type in chat. Yes or no. Everybody gets to vote. Yeah, Sydney said yes with POTS, right? So many people. Yes, yes, and hell yeah. I would be like yes, yes, and hell yes.
Well, and something else that I'm noticing, Dr. Maggie, is some of the people who are saying that they have dysautonomia or that they're dealing with POTS as well are also listing so many other autoimmune conditions. So it's like once you get an autoimmune condition, can you talk a little bit about why is it that, we oftentimes see these come in clusters and it's not just stopping at one condition?
Well, I think we're gonna talk about that in a second. But what I want to do is I want to bring in our top docs panel because I think this would be a really great question with which you guys can hear us really top shop behind the scenes.
All
So
right.
what I would love to do is I would love to introduce Dr. Jason and Kathy Ryan to join us on our top docs panel today.
Yay.
Hello. So
Hey,
Dr. Jason, let's have you
Hello.
introduce yourself, and then Kathy.
awesome. Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me. I love these shows. So yeah, I'm Dr. J. I am a 24-year veteran. The years keep adding up of functional medicine and private practice. I know you still got a few years on me for sure. And I learn every day. But yeah, I've had a private practice for a long time, focusing on autoimmunity, thyroid, lupus variants. And I'm just excited to be here on the Transform team and be on the show tonight.
Great. Kathy?
Hi, I'm Kathy Ryan. I'm a registered holistic nutritionist, and I have been practicing for over 15 years. I've been working with Dr. Maggie since 2019, and my area of expertise is hormones and weight loss. I've written a book, The Context Eating Method for Women, and I love working with Dr. Maggie and Dr. Jason, and I love talking about autoimmunity.
So we were on the hot topic and you were asking a question. And the question was, why do autoimmune symptoms or diagnosis come in clusters? And they do. So this is like a huge breakthrough for people to really think about. All these symptoms and all the different autoimmune diagnoses are connected. I would love some, Kathy, did you want to jump in on that one?
Yeah. So what we see all the time is someone will start with one autoimmune condition, and then over the years, they end up with more and more and more. And that's directly related to the fact that the root cause is not being addressed, right? When you're going to a doctor for your bowel issues, they're not looking at the fact that you also have vitiligo, right? They don't care about your skin. And so you've got this piecemeal thing going on in our healthcare system, and nobody's talking to each other, and the root cause is never addressed.
Charlene is the best description of this. And then I know, Kathy, you might want to check your internet and the Wi-Fi connection of the other devices. But let's look at Charlene's case here. I think this is a classic cluster that's missed. And we see someone like Charlene every single day. We work with probably tons of people like this every month. So listen, I mean, she's got lupus, clear autoimmune diagnosis. But how are the histamines related with this? And she's got CFS, the chronic fatigue syndrome. Now she has nerves with dysautonomia under attack, and then her hormone making organs with adrenals and thyroid is also. Why is this such a common cluster, Dr. J?
Well, there's a lot going on here, right? I mean, first of all, going back to what you were talking about earlier, the immune system, when we have an autoimmune attack, it gets confused and it thinks that we're germs, different tissues are germs, and it wants to attack it and destroy it. So, I mean, any cell, any tissue can be a target. And I think that's what's confusing. The other thing I wanted to pull up here too is that we talked about, having a hard time getting diagnosed, right? Because of all these symptoms that don't seem to go together. The reality is, conservatively, about 8% of the US population has an autoimmunity. That's conservative. I think it's a lot more, but let's just go with those numbers. That's 24 million people. And Dr. Baggy, I know the training that goes into physicians of diagnosing these autoimmune, it's not there. I mean, it's basically usually picked up incidentally. People don't get diagnoses. And even if you do, the general practitioner, most doctors that are out there don't know what to do with it anyway. So it's not only hard to get diagnosed, but even if you do, nobody knows what to do with it.
Well, okay, I'm going to pull up Charlene's comment really here quickly, because here's my thing, okay? I see patterns that nobody else does. So what I want to do is, if somebody can pop that comment back up, I see something that's an interesting link here. So I see the pattern I see here is, you notice at the very end, she mentioned adrenals and thyroid. Mm-hmm. So what I want to actually point out something is that this is, to me, the biggest breakthrough. What is the biggest breakthrough that we've discovered in dealing with thousands and thousands of people with autoimmune disease is, and write this down, it's hormonal balance issues, because autoimmune disease love to attack your hormone making cells. Yep. Okay. And it's no accident that Charlene said adrenals and thyroid. I think she just didn't say her ovarian hormones were also a shit show. Excuse me, I'm a fan of the cursey words. Warned you after the fact. But her thyroid, her thyroid, number one, is autoimmune. And then when her body's mistaking her thyroid as a germ, it's also mistaking her other hormone-making cell, which is her adrenal, as a germ. How often do we see that connection where it's not just the thyroid issue, it's an ovarian hormone, it's a sex hormone issue, or it's even hormones that balance blood sugar? We see all of them under attack as a pattern in most people with autoimmune disorders. Dr. J?
Yeah, and going back to what you said and what Kathy said earlier, we tend to see these autoimmunities, these different conditions start stacking over time, because the immune system, it just starts attacking more and more tissues. So, it might have started with the thyroid. Now we've got some nodules that nobody wants to do anything with. Next thing we're having the adrenals attacked, and we have chronic fatigue and POTS and dysautonomia. And then the next thing you're, like you said, your ovaries or testicles are being attacked. And it really, the autoimmunity and hormones go hand in hand.
I can't make this shit up, because look at Cindy. She's the next comment here. Okay. And I want everybody in chat to look at this pattern. Anybody who's an alumni of any of our programs right now, type alumni, tell people what symptoms have already improved or what diagnosis you already turned around. Type it in chat so we can share that. But listen to Cindy, right? We just mentioned that people with low thyroid, and if you haven't watched my low thyroid series, everything about thyroid, type in chat thyroid guide training series, because we can get that to you. We did a whole month around thyroid, like in February and March. So if you want to get a hold of thyroid guide and training, type that in chat. We'll get it to you. But we said in those trainings that people with low thyroid, the likelihood that it is autoimmune based on data is higher than 80%. It's currently now at 90% of people with low thyroid actually have an autoimmune diagnosis, and most of them don't know about it, and most of their doctors don't know and don't care with that it's autoimmune. Now, is it by accident that Cindy not only have Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune attack against the thyroid, and then look at what's at the end of that list? Mm-hmm. PCOS, which is an ovarian hormone problem called polycystic ovarian syndrome, and estrogen dominance, which is a pattern associated with ovarian hormones being out of balance as well. That's a pattern that's being missed. Hashimoto's, low thyroid linked with ovarian hormone problems. And then in the previous case we talked about, linked with adrenal hormone problems. How often do we see that, Dr. J?
Yeah, and I think what's really sad is, and I'm so glad that Cindy posted that, I think what's interesting is these are never put together, and so they're never addressed. And so patients start to feel like, how many times do we hear this, guys? We see Cindy's case all day, every day. This is what we eat for breakfast. right?
Every
That's
day.
what we eat for breakfast. What's for lunch? So the thing is, Cindy starts to think, because she's gone to all these different practitioners,
Yep.
nobody can put it together, and she starts to feel like a what? A zebra. Something's unique about me. And I mean, everybody's a unique person, but her case is really straightforward. I mean, it's an autoimmune attack. And if we start looking at it through that lens, we're able to address it more effectively.
Kathy?
Yeah, and I bet you, I don't know Cindy at all, but I bet you, I can almost bet for certain that her symptoms started around the age of 12 or 13. I'm not psychic, but I have a feeling that that might be exactly what's happened here. Just because estrogen dominance is not something that people suddenly get in their 30s, 40s, 50s. They often have it from puberty on.
So here's the thing. When I look at Cindy and then Charlene's list of symptoms and diagnosis, the hidden biohack there is that their hormones is the biggest trigger of the onset, like when the autoimmune started or when it gets worse. And I'm going to ask Cindy, I'm going to ask Charlene, I'm going to ask Emma Info Dumps, all these people that I know that have gone through my hormone masterclass or our program where they really got their hormones tested and they understood what the patterns are. Let's talk about this whole topic around the hidden pattern of what I call hormonally vulnerable times. Okay, this is a history that is missed on every one of you. So everybody get ready. Think about this, okay? We're going to start as a group listing some times when your hormones shift a lot. And during those times, you'll start to think and correlate with the fact that your autoimmune disease symptoms first showed up or they got way worse. So let's talk first with puberty.
Yeah.
Puberty. Okay. We just talked to a set of parents where at 10, totally healthy child at the age of 10 or 11, he ended up getting diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. Why that time? Well, it's the onset of puberty for a boy, right? And for girls as well. This is also when girls start to cycle. So we see a cluster of autoimmune disease diagnosed right around the age anywhere from 8 to 12. And that's because puberty, big shift in hormones, right? And then next is monthly. Now let's talk monthly cycles. How many of you there how many of you out there like humor my ass? Tell me if I'm hitting this nail on the head. Notice that certain times in the month, for those of you that menstruate, that inexplicably symptoms that aren't necessarily even related with hormones or your periods is way worse. Okay, so Anne, while they're typing in chat, share your experience. What gets worse for you?
Every single month, I feel like I have been dealing with this prior to finding out some of my root causes by working with you. But right before I would get my period, I would start dealing. It's like I knew when it was coming. I knew right after I ovulated because I would start to get pain. I would also start to have swallowing problems. And these are two of my key symptoms associated with my autoimmune attack. So it was cyclical like clockwork.
Well, we're talking connected. What Anne is talking about is some of the mixed connective tissue disorders. And of that, in that list would be things like Raynaud's, would be like Crest syndrome, would be one of Sjogren's, would be scleroderma, right? Dermatomyositis. So why would those be linked to certain times of the month? Why would pain and swallowing be? And most people, we're talking menstruating females. If they go in to tell their doctor that they get worse certain times of the month with their pain or their swallowing, it's going to be laughed out.
Like I was crazy. Yes.
Wait, I can fix that right now. Just take the pill. You're done. And if it doesn't help, take some Zoloft. We'll call it a day.
And Prozac is long acting. You don't have to take it once a week and you'll be just fine. Just take it once a week, every week.
All of the above have been recommended to me, and I know I'm not alone.
If it's only happening every 2 weeks a month, just take more Tylenol during that time. You'll be fine.
That's not a big deal.
I have that as well. They're like, oh, maybe you just need some anti-inflammatory for your joint pain during that time. You'll be okay. Or, oh, maybe you just have, what is it called when you have like tennis elbow and things like that. They start throwing out those kinds of things. And I'm like, that's not what's happening. There's a clear pattern here.
Well, and Emma says, my chronic illness hit when I was 19. Symptoms were hell on earth during my period. And I know, knowing Emma's history, and Emma could share it in chat, one of the, young female, she could share in chat, but she has shared already before. But my recollection is that there's a lot of people right around this, not only do they have tough or hard periods, but that it exacerbates things like neuropathy, POTS, histamine problems, or lupus, right? Any of these things. So, again, affirming it. So certain times of the month. Now, what about after you deliver a child? And this is my case. After each of my children, during pregnancy, I developed diabetes, which we just mentioned was autoimmune. I even had insulin-dependent diabetes, right? Number one, I already had signs of autoimmunity while I was pregnant, but none of my doctors nor me knew that the diabetes is an autoimmune diagnosis. And then when we deliver a baby, we're not just delivering a baby, we're delivering right after the baby, the afterbirth, the placenta, which makes a ton of hormones while you're pregnant. So you not only deliver the baby, you develop this giant mass of hormonally active tissue, and boom, your hormones plummet like this. And then you wonder why so many women postpartum develop things like thyroid, postpartum depression, fibromyalgia, joint pain. I'm going to ask you guys, every single one of you, I want to validate you right now. If you yourself, or somebody in your family or somebody that it was after the birth of their child that it triggered the onset of all of this, type it in chat and share the experience, because I can't be the only one. After I delivered each of my children, not only did I have diabetes during the pregnancy, I developed hair loss, weight gain, chronic pain, fibromyalgia, TMJ, right? You name it. Right. And then it was 3-4 years later, I was then diagnosed by myself as having an autoimmune disease against my thyroid. Nobody would even test me before then, even though I had tons of low thyroid symptoms. So I know for a fact I had postpartum thyroiditis, which is postpartum hormonally triggered autoimmune attack against my thyroid. Boom.
And Jessica says, yeah, my issues went crazy after I had my daughter.
Exactly. Right. And Jill says, been there, done that. Right. Exactly.
Fibromyalgia after having my son. This is an all too common story. And it happened to me. It happened to Dr. Maggie. It happened to so many of you who are watching. But it's not something that doctors seem to be able to help us with and help us understand, why is this happening and how can we figure this out? I mean, when it's very clearly that one of the root causes lies in hormone balancing.
Well, and I want to go further because Karen here is sharing something really important. Like, people talk about early menopause. I hit early menopause at the age of 36 because of my autoimmune attack against my ovaries, right? Not just my thyroid, but my ovaries. And then you look at someone, Karen, how many people were told that getting it, because you have a lot of bleeding and hormone problems, let's just get rid of your uterus. Let's do a hysterectomy and you'll be fine, little lady. And here's the thing. Just because you have one of the organs that is sensitive to hormones, your uterus, removed, it doesn't remove the underlying source of the hormone imbalance. That hormone imbalance still exists. So yes, you're no longer bleeding to death because one of your organs are missing, but you still have the weight gain. You still have the insomnia. You still have the anxiety. You still have the cholesterol. Like, all of that is still there. In fact, it's worse. Go ahead, Dr. J.
Yeah, not only all of that, which is already bad enough, but now we've cut a part of the body out, and that target that the immune system was targeting is foreign and trying to kill. It's gone. Well, the immune system now is like, what else should I attack? So it's like, okay, hysterectomy, that's gone. Let's start attacking this tissue and that tissue and the other tissue, neurological tissue, thyroid, GI. And that's why we see these things stacking. And that's why we see it after.
There's an escalation of the number of targets, right? So, but I think, so I'm going to take this to the bank, everybody, because we're talking about what is a breakthrough concept in autoimmunity. The breakthrough concept is that if you never accurately measure and understand the patterns of imbalance in your hormones and you never fix them, you are a sitting, walking duck for the stacking of more and more targets of autoimmune attack, because autoimmune attack is triggered by people with highly fluctuating hormones. I just want you guys to sit with that. If you never balance your hormones, and doctors out there don't even know what hormone balancing is, okay? Taking the pill is not balancing your hormones. A hysterectomy sure as hell is not balancing your hormones, okay? So if you never actually understand what that takes to balance the hormones, autoimmunity just keeps stacking. And menopause or a hysterectomy just makes it so much worse, because a hysterectomy removes one of your hormone-making organs, okay? And so therefore, Are you going to be better at balancing your hormones or worse at balancing your hormones? Worse, right? And then somebody will say, but I'm taking bioidentical hormones. I'm taking hormones. And Kathy, you're about to say something.
I just want to add too, that when we talk about stacking all of these different autoimmune conditions, we have to also remember that only a very small percentage of autoimmune conditions actually have a name. So there are thousands of targets of autoimmunity in the body that don't have a name. So you might be diagnosed with fibromyalgia, but you might also have many other targets of autoimmunity that don't actually have a name or a diagnosis, right? And so that's the other thing that we need to consider, is that a lot of people, they want the diagnoses just so that they know what they're talking about. So it validates how they're feeling. But the reality is you don't actually need that name. You don't actually need that diagnosis, because we believe you. We believe you.
Well, this is one of the things I talk about is I wasn't believed. And now I'm using myself as a teaching case for all of you guys. So let's talk it through, which is I had diabetes during my pregnancy, right? After I delivered the kids, I had postpartum thyroiditis, and then I developed fibromyalgia as a condition, and they were trying to throw narcotics, gabapentin, antidepressants at me, none of which worked, right? And then later on, I diagnosed myself as having actual Hashimoto's because I finally ran the test, and that's an autoimmune attack against my thyroid. But hint again, it didn't stop at just my thyroid hormone making cells. It attacked my ovaries as well because they look the same as the thyroid. And I developed early menopause at the age of 36, right? So, and then, right, it wasn't just fibro after all. What's the underlying cause of fibro? I have what's called autoimmune mixed connective tissue disorder. People who have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which I have a variant of, right? Thoracic outlet. People have mixed connective tissue. I didn't realize till years later, and I still don't have a diagnosis of the mixed connective tissue disorder I have, because do you know how many thousands of targets of autoimmune attack there are? Like, I'm going to use the thyroid as an example, and people can type in chat. Do you guys know just in the thyroid alone, which is a walnut-sized gland around your neck, how many distinctly different targets of autoimmune attack there are in the thyroid, right?
The alumni should start chiming in, because this is something that you absolutely teach.
And I'm telling you guys, it's not even in the 30s. It's not even in the hundreds. There is 6,000 different targets of all these people jumping in. I think from my hormone masterclass, from our Transform Fundamentals program, there are 6,000 different targets of autoimmune attack. And we're just testing like 2 or 3 and telling you don't have an autoimmune disease, right? So it took a while for me to even get the diagnosis of Hashimoto's, but at the same time, I have mixed connective tissue disorder because of every symptom, the joint laxity, everything that would qualify for it. But there is literally no test available I've had 10, 20 different tests for connective tissue disorder. All of them are negative. But does that mean I don't have it? No, because there's probably 8,000 or 9,000 other targets that there isn't even blood tests available to test.
Exactly.
Right?
I just want to also add, if I may say, because I was actually given a diagnosis of undifferentiated connective tissue disease, which some people like to argue if it's a actual diagnosis or if it's just a placeholder diagnosis while we wait to figure out what your actual diagnosis really is going to be. So it speaks exactly to what you're talking about here, in that there are so many unknowns. There are so many potential other autoimmune conditions out there that we just don't know about. But what we do know is your body's under attack.
And what is fueling the attack. So listen up. This is the focus of today. The number one trigger that's fueling the autoimmune attack is your hormones. So people are saying, how do you manage it? What are the do's? What are some do's? What are some don'ts when it comes to managing hormones, right? We just wanted to make sure we build the knowledge base so you understand why we're saying this. It's not out of left field. One of the biggest things that we do in our programs, whether it's my hormone masterclass or the Transform Fundamentals program, is you have to be able to balance hormones by 3 steps, okay? I'm going to tell you step number one, you got to get accurate testing of your hormones. By the way, how many of you guys want our hormone guide and training? How many want our hormone guide and checklist? If you want that, go ahead and type it in chat. We will get it to you, right? So we have a comprehensive guide where there's a checklist of some of your symptoms, exactly what to do about it. And we have a training series that is also in the guide that you can access as well. A lot of videos. Now, for all of you guys that are watching right now, there are a lot of different platforms people are watching in. I'm going to urge every single one of you to actually head over to watch this on our YouTube channel. Very shortly, there are going to be changes coming with Meta and Facebook where we may not be able to stream live into Facebook anymore. So unless you are subscribed to our YouTube channel and click the bell to get notified, you won't know that we're actually doing one of these trainings. So we're going to share a link to this live training right now that takes you straight to our YouTube channel. And do me a favor, subscribe. Do you know that less than 10% of people who watch our trainings are actually subscribers? So you know what? Give this training a thumbs up right now. Subscribe to the channel, and then ring the bell to get notified, because in just a couple short weeks, we may not be able to come live to you on Facebook and other Meta-owned social media platforms, just so you guys know. So head over to YouTube if you can.
And you give away so much free, important information, Dr. Maggie. So thank you for taking the time to do this. This isn't like you can't find this information out anywhere else, and you're taking the time to give it to us. So thank you for that. And yes, if you do want to be notified, you'll have to get on YouTube.
Dr. J?
Yeah, I thank you for sharing that too. And if you haven't subscribed yet, for sure, subscribe to the YouTube channel. There's amazing information on there. I wanted to go back to these hormonally vulnerable times, because I think that this is really important, but I think there's a whole group of people that we didn't actually give lip service to. And I'm going to represent all of them on the call right. And it's, right? Because here's the deal. Here's the deal. I was a sickly kid, handsome as all get out, but sickly nonetheless. And,
not much has changed, I guess.
Right. So, but I had fatigue, I had pain, brain fog, headaches, frequent illnesses, histamine responses. I mean, I had all this stuff going on. They were pushing pills in me all the time. And nobody put it all together, right? So this led to me. This all started, by the way, in puberty, right? And I just went downhill, downhill, downhill. I don't know when I was diagnosed, but sometime in my late 20s, early 30s, again, like Dr. Maggie, I started investigating there's got to be a connection with me. And I found out that sure enough, it's autoimmunity. And I subsequently stacked these together. I got diagnosed with Hashey's, ankylosing spondylitis, autoimmune IBD, mixed connective tissue. I had low T. I was depressed. I had no energy. I mean, it was horrible. And it's because nobody, when I was a tiny little kid, just figured my hormones out. Nobody bothered to say, hey, something's not right with this kid. Let's figure it out. And it was hormones. It was hormones all the whole way.
I just want to clarify one thing that you said there, Dr. J, because you passed right over it. You said you had low T.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, testosterone. Yeah. So my hormones producing organs, the good bits, right? They were under attack with the autoimmunity as well. And I had literally no testosterone. I had none. I had less testosterone than and I mean this out of love. I had less testosterone than like I was going to say like a menopausal woman or something. Like I had no testosterone.
Then a 10-year-old boy.
10-year-old boy is but this isn't just Dr. J. We literally just had a case of John in our program, currently in our program. And I want to really highlight just how big of a freaking deal this hormone issue is. We have a man I think he's in his late 30s, with severe POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, neuropathy, meaning pain or balance or numbness type issues, severe chronic fatigue syndrome, to the point where no longer able to work in his late 30s and laying in bed. Literally, when we first met him a couple weeks ago, he is just laying next to, couldn't even sit up straight with the camera because that's how bad the balance and vertigo was. And we reviewed his hormones yesterday.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, it was like a classic case, right? I mean, so we have this guy that suffered for how many years? I mean, decades.
He said 10 years plus. Yeah. Yeah.
10 years plus, right? And he's literally, when we do his hormones, I mean, he has no testosterone. His adrenals are under attack. His hormones are under attack. And I mean, this is his holy grail. And I mean, I can't wait for John. I can't wait to see where we are in just a little bit of time. I mean, I'm excited for him.
Well, I love to hear that because you had some alumni chime in too, 2 of them actually during this that said about week 8 of the program, after focusing on my hormones,
yeah, Yvonne just said that.
Problems were gone. And if you're an alumni who has been helped by some of this, write back in and let us know that, because it's like you were saying, I know you can't wait for this gentleman to see the light at the end of this, especially probably you,
Well,
Dr.
in a couple of weeks, he's going to be thanking Dr. J, Kathy, and I. Like I told him, John, you can thank us later. Kathy, what were you about to add?
Yeah, I think we need to pause on this for just a minute and talk about the fact that this is criminal, that this guy was suffering.
Yeah.
Suffering for 10 years, and no one had taken the time not only to test his hormones, but I believe he also didn't even get his basic nutrient markers tested. Like there was nothing done for him, and this should have been one of the first things that got looked at, right? And he suffered all this time, and like one test, and it's like boom, right there in neon bright lights, what his problem is.
Well, and so it goes back to solutions. Like people are like, what are you supposed to do with this? And I just want to show you guys just a quick little kind of this slide is about one of our programs. Is called My Hormone Masterclass, but it is telling you what needs to be done. So if nothing else, just look at what needs to be done to balance hormones. So when you're looking at My Hormone Masterclass, when you enroll in that program, and we'll share the link if you're interested, we send out, you have to do the right tests at the right time. So really, I love using saliva hormone testing because we're testing the free hormones, and we give instructions. If you're menstruating, it's the exact time you need to test your hormones. So I don't know how many people came and had their hormones erroneously tested in the wrong way at the wrong time, and then erroneously told it's normal. That's criminal. Number 1, get the right test, do it at the right time. Number 2 is this is an educational platform. Like I am here, I'm getting covered underneath that ring. If we could remove that, that'd be great. I'm hiding underneath it. Jonathan, is there a way to move me? So that'd be great. Thanks. All right. So I didn't know I could move it like that. Anne, did you see that?
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I know. So number 2 is we're an educational platform. I was trying to explain to someone what it is that we do that's so different than quote unquote other programs. And a set of parents told us the other night, we looked at other programs, and what they are is they basically push and sell supplement subscriptions that are hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy over and over again with no skill building or education to fix the root causes. You're the first quote unquote program we actually talk to. That's a program that actually educates us and teaches skills. So number 1, you want your hormones tested accurately. Why? Because I want to educate you on what those patterns are. I guarantee you when you go through the education of what these hidden patterns are, it's going to mind blow you because none of your doctors have even heard of them. Most doctors have never heard of these patterns. And yet these patterns is what triggers that autoimmune attack. And the patterns, for example, are things like the thyroid issues that are going on, and how the autoimmune thyroid, and how does that show up in your sex hormones or your adrenal hormones, right? There are patterns like someone just mentioned estrogen dominance. Someone mentioned polycystic ovarian syndrome. I had early menopause. So how important are these patterns? And yet every single one of us was told that our hormones were in the normal range. Okay. So testing your hormones is not about looking whether each of those hormones is in the range of normal. It's about how each one of these hormones stacks up against each other and what pattern it's showing. That is the missing link, and that's the holy grail. And nobody is teaching doctors about these patterns. In fact, doctors come to us to ask us to get trained on these patterns that they weren't taught on. Dr. J, what were you about to say?
Well, yeah, and I was just going to say it's such a complex thing here. But the reality is, as you mentioned, doctors aren't trained in how to interpret hormones. Number 1, this is why doctors don't order your hormones. I know people always say to us all the time, how many times have we heard, I go to my doctor, I tell them I have a hormone problem, but they won't order my hormones. It's because I want you to hear me on this. Doctors don't know how to read the test. They don't really even know how to test it. So they're like, I don't know, there's a blood test at LabCorp or Quest. Let's just call it that and call it good. And they don't really know what to do with it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I have a question for you, Dr. Maggie, that maybe you could speak to, because this person says, you know, hey, I wish I could find a doctor like you. Are there any doctors like you in Australia? And really the beauty of this is you can work with people everywhere.
Well, we
We
work
do.
internationally. We send these test kits internationally. All the online training that you do to learn is on your own device, on your own time. And then the live medical guidance, because the three of us, Dr. J, Kathy, myself, we want to train you how to recognize these patterns and how to fix them for life, right? So you actually work in a live review session on Zoom, on an online platform with us. So we can actually be like, hey, this is what's missing. Here's what's going on. We actually put it together, each case, customized, personalized, all questions answered, patterns show, root causes of that pattern, everything that needs to be done to be implemented to fix and balance those hormones. That's what we do, right? And that happens on an ongoing basis in my hormone masterclass as we continue to work, because you know why? Hormones continue to change. You're going to test, you're going to retest. It can be so much. It's really a rich, big topic. But who the heck in a clinic, number one, knows all this information? Number two, has time to teach you that. And number three, has time to repeatedly over a year time frame work with you to actually make sure that what you're implementing and doing, how do we troubleshoot, right? And some people need to start hormones. Some people need to lower the hormones. Some people need to stop their hormones. Somebody has had a hysterectomy. All of these are covered in my hormone masterclass. Some people are on birth control pills. So all of that is covered. Kathy?
Yeah. And the coolest part is everybody learns together as peers, so that we end up with people that go through our program knowing almost as much as we do. I wouldn't want to say as much as we do, but they're pretty darn close. Pretty darn close. We teach them everything we know. And
just the other day.
So that means, what's that?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So that means when they get their test 3 months from now or 3 years from now, they can look at their own hormone test and go, oh, okay, I need to do this. I need to do this. I need to do this.
Yeah.
Boom.
I just interviewed an alumni yesterday who said that was one of the deciding factors for why she went with your program, among many other reasons, but it's because of the education. And she wanted that ability to be able to know what to do for herself for life, and to know what to do for her. She actually has 12 children for life.
I know what you're talking about, Loretta.
Yeah. Yes. And so, yeah, that's the knowledge that she's gained now. And it's like Kathy's talking about, like the alumni, when they graduate, they know just as much, almost at times, as you guys do, because that's the program and the quality that you're putting out.
I want to bring up Roxy's case. So I don't know how many of you guys watched the book launch for 8 Out of the Box. And if you wanted to rewatch the book launch, type book launch in chat. But in there, we had so many experts come on during the book launch who inspired the book. And we had real life case studies that were in the book that were actually in the book launch, sharing their stories and their success. Roxy and Lucas's story really resonated with a ton of people. We got a ton of emails and comments about that. And Roxy had struggled with colitis, really severe proctitis, actually autoimmune proctitis, which is even lower on the end, right? And bleeding, pain, and dealing with trying to get pregnant and start a family, right? This is a young couple, right? And what she shared at the book launch was, she said that, you know, balancing, and nobody linked the whole time she's been bleeding, being told to put on all these medications, right? She had never been told that her hormones had anything to do with it, or the cycling that she had anything to do with it. She was never told that any of the fertility struggles or any fertility struggles that she has was even linked with the colitis, and yet they were. And on the book launch, she actually shared that, she goes, Dr. Maggie, you don't know what it's like to wake up after being told that because the meds failed, that you're just going to die young and that there's nothing more we can do. She goes, I never felt like I was okay. And to now have no bleeding, no pain, and to be working on, you know, with IVF and trying to get pregnant. She's like, I wake up in the morning and I feel okay. I actually feel okay. And what a gift that is. And you guys know we worked with Roxy on balancing her hormones. Huge, right? And that's the reason she has such a huge turnaround with her autoimmune proctitis as well, right? So these are totally linked, and this really impacts on people's quality of life. And it was the game changer for her. If you ask her, she said hormones, hormones, hormones. Huge.
And her husband has seen such a dramatic change in her as well. And I know he was so thankful. It was emotional. I got chills when he looked. It's like he stared into your soul and said, Dr. Maggie, thank you. Because what you're doing when you're helping people through this program is you're not just helping one person, you're helping a family unit. And then you're actually, the reach goes much farther than that, because when we talk about education, they're able to help their loved ones as well.
Hormones is not a small deal. It's a ginormous deal. Kathy?
Can we just talk for a minute too about, there are doctors that do hormones, and then what kind of hormones do you get put on, right? This is how I got into figuring out my own hormones, because I actually did go through early menopause at the age of 29, and so they tried to put me on, estrogen and progestins and all kinds of things that I reacted so negatively to mentally. I didn't have any mental health issues before the doctors got a hold of me. But as soon as they started to try putting me on all these hormones, it was terrible. And at one point they wanted to put me on an IUD. And I was terrified, because they told me, I said, look, I'm really worried I'm going to react negatively to this mentally, and then I'm going to go into a depression. And they told me, well, you have to keep it in for the minimum of 3 months in order for everything to balance out. And if you can't do that, then we can't help you. And I was like, I can't not be okay for 3 months. So I ended up declining them, and they dismissed me. And I was left at the age of basically 32 with no other options available to me. And so I had to figure it out for myself. So they have very limited tools in their toolkit. And that's another whole issue.
What I find so interesting now, and I didn't know that about you, Kathy, and I didn't know, Dr. Jason, so much of your story before, is so many of the physicians and the functional practitioners who get into this industry, it seems to me, have had to do so because of something that's happened in their own life, because they were left without answers. And does that ring true to you, Dr. Jason?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's really frustrating for me anyway, here, just like Dr. Maggie and Kathy, I mean this with the ego set aside. I was a flippin' doctor. Like I knew stuff, and I had a lot of friends that were doctors, and I had a lot of an extensive network, and I had resources and tools that I could go to. And guess what? I still couldn't figure it out. It still took me to step back and educate myself, and then connect with Dr. Maggie and learn with Dr. Maggie and mentor through her, that really putting this together, where I'm like, oh, okay, this all makes sense now, but I mean, it's even if you have the desire, the training, or some training, the network, it's still impossible. It's just not out there, which is why, like Dr. Maggie said, we have a lot of practitioners that are coming to us now and saying, hey, can you train us in this? I would like to help other people as well.
Yeah, there were a lot of questions in chat just about some details. Like for me, so 3 steps to really balance your hormones to really think about. Number 1, make sure you get accurate testing for your hormones. I prefer saliva. Number 2, your own education on the patterns, because your doctors do not know what they are. And a quick start to that is, if you want our hormone checklist and guide, put that in chat. We'll get it to you. We'll even share the link for you guys down in chat. Put it in the chat. But in our My Hormone Masterclass, we have hundreds of hours of training in there, all around different topics that is provider level training, not only to educate you, but providers are coming asking us to teach them these patterns. So I think your education is really critical as a step 2. And then step 3, work with the experts. So really, there's nothing that replaces being able to interact with you live with us, no matter where you are in the world, to go through these patterns, go through your questions and answers and how to troubleshoot that. That being said, people started asking questions about, are there payment plan, are there options and all this stuff. I want to tell you that when you guys go to the My Hormone Masterclass website, you go, and we'll put the link there. There you can pay. There's multiple ways to pay, or to have payment options. And there's even a pay over time option that is powered by one of our partners, Affirm. So if you're like, I need to break it out into a 12-month, 24, 36 months, there's options for that as well. So it's made it extremely doable for people for way less than they think. And so if you're interested, these are new payment options we just added to my Hormone Masterclass. So we'll share that link in chat for you guys to check that out. And if you're interested in the longer term payment options, it says pay over time. Click it and put in your information and you'll see the options there.
Dr. Maggie, hormones for you, it's the reason that I found you in the first place. And I know it's the reason that so many people turn to you, because you have a very strong passion about this through your own story and watching so many other people, men, women, children, deal with their hormones not being where they should be and thus having so many issues. So thank you for, how on earth were you able to discover all of this? Because you have figured out what others cannot.
So take this to the bank, everybody. All right. I think it's really important in discernment and finding who you want to be in your medical team. Who are the people that you want to work with? Nothing beats someone's own suffering. Okay. Your greatest teacher is your own area of greatest suffering. So what started this out for me were hormonal problems during my teens, during my pregnancy, during postpartum, during early menopause, during menopause, post-menopause, recognizing that for me, getting no help from anywhere else and being left to say, you know what, you're left to your own devices and your own resources. I'm like, I'm super smart medically, and knowing that information, being the MD trained in that background in this body that's seeing these patterns and dealing with it, what are all the other tools that I can put in here based on the world of holistic medicine, naturopathic medicine, functional medicine? How can we put that together, right, and bring solutions? And I think it's in the incubator of my own suffering. I mean, I'm really thankful and grateful I had to deal with all of this, because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have figured this out, and there wouldn't be these programs, and there wouldn't even be this show today going over this with you. And think about that. For those of you guys that are out there, where is your greatest area of suffering that you think you can become a teacher in? Type in chat. Where is your greatest area of suffering that you think you could be an incredible teacher in? Type in chat. Okay. And that's why we do what we do. So I hope you understand the motivation behind what it is that we do. Right. And then finally, we're closing this out. We're almost at an hour. That was really
it's fast.
That was fast, because we have now Perez's row. We have people talking about, what about the connection of mast cell activation and histamine problems, right? Someone wrote, does leaky gut even contribute to autoimmune disorder? And how does the gut and food contribute to autoimmune disorders, right? We actually have a lot of trainings around how food sensitivities and the food mapping is associated with the autoimmune. So if you're interested, type food mapping system in chat. We can get you a 6-part training series around how leaky gut, food sensitivities is actually linked with autoimmune disorders. We even have a 6-part training for mast cell activation and histamine intolerance. So if you're interested in that, type in chat and we'll get those to you, right? I love Catherine King. She says, I am not taking no for an answer, right? And that's the other thing. Be relentless. Be relentless. That's what got Kathy here, Dr. J here, and myself here. Through our own suffering, we got relentless because we had no other choice. And then we came up with new mentors, new education, new answers, new findings, new solutions, new results. Be relentless.
Any final thoughts from you, Dr. J?
Oh, I just think I think that's just absolutely true. I think that we have to advocate for ourselves. I mean, if you are struggling with I don't know what to call it, but like a mystery illness, like I said, if it doesn't fit into a box and nobody knows what to do with you, it's probably autoimmunity. Like let's just call it what it is. It's probably autoimmunity. And really that starts tying it all together and then breaking these down into looking at hormones. How's the hormones influencing this? How is the food sensitivities and the histamines? And like I said, just kind of working through it step by step. This is how we see people get into remission all of the time. And I just want you to know that, no matter how long you've been struggling and suffering, there's hope. I mean, there are answers. They're just not in conventional medicine, probably. But anyway,
There is hope, and that's what I eat for breakfast. But what I end the day with is your data, your education, and your results.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Outcomes.
And Kathy, can you leave us with any insight?
I would just highly encourage everybody to get their hormones tested. It doesn't even matter what your current symptoms are. Everybody needs to get their hormone tested, at least to have a baseline of what's normal for you. And we can correlate them with your symptoms if you have them. But really, we don't see anybody who has symptoms, anybody who has autoimmune conditions. We rarely see someone that doesn't need some kind of hormone intervention. I don't even know if it's ever happened. So I would highly recommend people get their hormones tested properly and analyzed properly.
Okay.
I want to close with a couple things, which is we've talked about a lot, right? But the main focus today is why hormone balancing is the holy grail and the hidden instigator and feeder of autoimmunity. So I hope that you got the main steps that you need to do is to test accurately, invest in your own education, and number 3, work with real experts. Now, that being said, we talked about some big diagnoses and lots of symptoms. So, and we have a lot of programs. We have a program for My Hormone Masterclass for balancing hormones. We have a thyroid masterclass program for people with thyroid and prescription needs for thyroid. We have a food mapping masterclass for people with dealing with food sensitivity, digestive issues. And we have a main transform program that covers every single thing that's needed to turn around any autoimmune or chronic health condition. Now, here's the thing. We don't know how to help you or what resources to share with you from YouTube and all this. We have so many resources unless you talk to us. So what I'm going to tell you right now is this. We have, if you're in the Facebook group, you can see the people that are messaging on our team. We have 2 full-time team members that are in Facebook group answering your questions, being resources. Message them. You know what? Click on them. You could see them already commenting on this video. Message them, send them a message and tell them what's going on with you. And they'll find and curate resources to share with you, whether there's videos, their guides, their trainings. And if you're on YouTube, comment. And then there's links that's being shared also right now to book a chat with our team, right? So I want to talk to you like a human, and I want you to talk to a real human here. Okay, no AI there. Okay, so what I want you to do is click the link to book a chat with our team. It's a quick conversation. It's gonna be like a 10, 15-minute conversation. So we actually can get to know what it is that's going on with you. And if you have a question, whether they're connected or not, if you're feeling dismissed, you wanna talk to people who really know what we're talking about, click and book a chat with our team so we know what to share with you and how we can help. So there's going to be a link in, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, we're going to post a link where you can book a chat with a live member of our team. So that would be my biggest big step for you if you want to find solutions or learn more about what it is, some of these resources are and how we can help and what you can do to learn to help.
Because we're getting questions even on here, which class do you start with? Or here are some of my symptoms. What would be the best fit for me? This is exactly the discussion that you would want to have.
And I don't want to give you a generic answer. I want to give you a customized answer that's tailor fit for you. So the best way to do that is tell me what's going on right now, message a member of our team right away, and book a chat with our team. Like, we've opened up extra slots. Martha and our team has opened up extra slots like tomorrow and Monday to accommodate the influx of people who are going to want to talk to us. So take advantage of that link right now. Extra slots were just put in so we could accommodate and answer all your questions.
Okay. This has been really enlightening. Thank you for delving into one of the #1 breakthroughs, root causes of what's driving your autoimmunity. It must be your hormones. It can't be your hormones. I'm remembering a chapter of your book here, Dr. Maggie, which was also incredibly helpful. If you haven't yet gotten 8 out of the box, you'll have to go ahead and get on Amazon and get that book there. He's got one right next to him.
By the way, thank you, everybody. We hit #1 bestseller in 7 categories internationally when we launched the book. So thank you, everybody. And it is on Amazon, 8 out of the box. Just look under 8 out of the box with the number 8, or look under my name, Maggie UMD, and you will find the book. I can't wait to see all of you guys have been reading it. The reviews have been pouring in. Those of you who are reading it and have read it, please drop some reviews in Amazon. We're almost up to 50 reviews. So that's huge, just in a matter of less than a week. I want to thank you in advance for all of you guys doing that.
Okay. Well, thank you for spending the time to talk about this discussion today, Dr. Maggie. I know it was enlightening for so many people, and it's going to set them on a path to wanting to get more answers.
So I'm going to ask the question in chat right now. What was your biggest aha that you got from today? Type in chat, right? If you have an aha, type it in the aha in chat. Now, do you want a bigger series for autoimmunity? Because I love user-generated, user-instigated content, okay? So would you like another live next week, live training with top docs here about autoimmunity? And if so, what about autoimmunity? Type it in chat because I'm going to read every single comment. Okay. So please pummel with comments for what areas of autoimmunity you would like this top docs team to cover next week. And we're going to deliver.
Yeah. People are saying, yes, let's continue the series. Certainly.
And tell me more. What do you want covered? All right. Give me more information. Tell me burning questions. Type it in chat. That'll be great.
Okay. Well, I look forward to that future discussion about this because people are obviously getting a lot out of today.
All right, everybody. That is a wrap. Have a wonderful evening.
Bye.
See you next week.
Everyone.
Yeah.